In my time making these contingencies, I've slowly but surely tackled several members of a particular family. With each time, I've delved deeper not only into the insanity of their lives, but also gained a deeper understanding of how much of a threat they can pose. I am, of course, speaking of the Waterson family, one who has time and again been at the center of most of the chaos that happens in their city. As of this moment, I have made contingencies for their mother, Nicole Waterson, the father, Richard Waterson, and the daughter, Anais Waterson, all of which have proven to be a powerful threat in their own regard. And yet, after finally piecing together the last bits of information I need to complete this series of contingencies, I've come to the conclusion that the last two members of the family are more of a threat than the rest combined. It's time we finally put this to rest. Contingency log, number 55. Code name, Disaster Duo. The two sons of the family, Gumball and Darwin Waterson, are an inseparable duo. And while both have their own feats to mention, it is usually their combined efforts that have disastrous effects on those around them. As such, I will be tackling both of them during this contingency. It won't be an easy task, but I can assure you that I am prepared for it. As per usual, we'll start small and work our way up. But I warn you, the things these boys do rarely stay in the small scale and can rapidly grow out of control. For example, we'll start with Kenneth, a sludge monster crafted by the boys, adding various unsanitary materials to a jar, then placing it into the microwave. This caused a mutation, bringing the concoction to life. Hard to say if this is a result of Gumball's reality itself, as even inanimate objects have sentience, or if this was due to Gumball's actions directly. Either way, this resulted in a monster which would eventually grow to titanic proportions. My reasoning to believing that the boys' direct involvement allowed for the transformation stems from the possibility that they possess a small level of reality warping, though I do not believe they have the ability to control it. My evidence for this comes in the form of Dodge or Dare, a board game they created together, one which can cause adverse effects to the players should they take a dodge card. For example, when their sister drew a "The floor is lava" card, she would instantly feel as though she was being burned from the floor itself. This would only affect her specifically, and the effect would persist until the game was completed. The boys themselves feared the game, knowing not only of the power it wields, but also of the fact that the game will call out to nearby people to play it. Despite making the game themselves, they have zero control of its power, however, meaning they are capable of creating life-threatening magical objects that can go unchecked. A lot of things the boys have done to the city have been accidental. However, I'd argue that it's the times where they are deliberately taking actions that have the worst results. For example, there's the time Darwin took public safety to an extreme level after watching a nightmare fuel of a video. In order to ensure everyone in Elmore's safety, Darwin would take up totalitarian tactics to enforce his rule. Not only would he force the city to follow him, but he managed to do this practically overnight. From what I've seen, there was no one other than his family who would choose to resist him. This is likely due to him having some level of mind control. On occasion during this event, the phrase, "It's for your own good," would be repeated, a vacant stare in people's eyes as they said it. To be able to achieve this level of reprogramming in such a short time, it stands to reason Darwin can alter others' minds. And if mind alteration is not enough to prove their threat level, then how about the ability to manipulate time itself? One morning, while attempting to get to school in time, Gumball would crash into the fourth wall. Side note, this is not the first nor the last time something like this would happen, as Gumball and Darwin casually affect the fourth wall on any given day, Darwin himself having broken it on a few occasions. I'll delve into one of those times in a bit. But when the fourth wall was affected this time, it resulted in Gumball stopping time completely. And after some time, Gumball would figure out how to manipulate it completely. While doing this, Gumball would accidentally send himself and Darwin to the end of the universe, surviving a big bang which happened behind him. He would also go back in time, manipulating events and causing butterfly effects on the present. And this isn't the first time either have shown this ability. Their actions also seem to be driven not just by their own decisions, but by the very city they live in. One day, Gumball decided that he and Darwin would have a lazy day, one which they did nothing, acknowledging all of the crazy events they found themselves in over the years. But the city of Elmore seemed to have other plans for them, as events would transpire around them in an attempt to get the boys to react to it. This included putting their family in such a specific type of danger that only the two of them could save them. This kind of manipulation for a purpose I cannot fathom has the boys under constant experience with unpredictable events. Needless to say, they are very adept at handling the unexpected. As mentioned, the boys also have feats of their own, some of which overlapping with the rest of their family, but they also have some that stands out above the rest. For example, Darwin once came down with a bad sneeze, one that would grow more powerful as time went on. This sneeze would not only grow strong enough to cause devastating blasts of air, but Darwin would somehow manage to push the earth downwards. Gumball being capable of withstanding the force of such a sneeze, though barely. I could be here all day listing what they could do, but let me end with one thing that has me concerned. That being an ability of Darwin which hasn't come up in some time, but is no less dangerous should be used again. You see, several years prior, while Gumball was 4 years old, his parents would get him a pet fish as a means to tame his energy and focus it on something else. That fish didn't last long, nor did the second. It wouldn't be till about the 8th try that Darwin was bought. Side note, the van he was bought from has many magical items and very much on my list, though after its escape from the law I haven't been able to find it quite yet. Either way, if it wasn't obvious, Darwin was indeed a magical fish, his ability being much more than just being able to talk. You see, Darwin would form a bond with Gumball, one which, after accidentally being flushed, would allow him to rapidly evolve. Through this, he'd gain lungs, legs, and grow much larger. All of this to allow him to make his way back home. He wouldn't be seen using this ability again since then, but should the need come back. There's no telling what Darwin could evolve into. Never mind if it would even be possible to defeat him if allowed to evolve enough. Frankly, not surprising when taking account that Darwin might be related to Poseidon. Needless to say, these two are an incredible threat even when just being boys. If their actions were to become completely malicious, there's no limit to what they could accomplish. That said, despite their strengths, they also have an equal amount of exploitable weaknesses. The most obvious being their age, not just the fact that they have the physical attributes of normal children. Well, whatever counts for normal in a world like their at least. But I speak more than just their physical abilities. As they are just children, they aren't exactly the smartest around. Actually, it's the very opposite given that they take after their father. As they do not think things through, I believe it'd be easy to trick the two if needed. In some cases, even bribery could be enough. Gumball in particular making it clear on several occasions that he'd be more than willing to accept a bribe, much to Darwin's dismay. It may also be possible to turn them against one another. Again, as they are just children, they have gotten into some petty squabbles from time to time. Turning their energy on one another would be more than enough to prevent the damage from becoming widespread. Though the effectiveness of this tactic is low, as their bond is far closer than anyone else in Elmore. Their mother is also a possible contingency. Despite what I've mentioned in her contingency, she is still doing everything she can to raise her kids properly. As such, if I were to clue her in on anything that could hint on their moral downfall, I am sure that she'd be more than ready to rectify that quickly. No matter how evil they could become, I doubt they'd ever overcome their fear of their mother. Frankly, I doubt there's many in the city who isn't afraid of what she could do. Finally, there is a nuclear option I can take advantage of, a place outside of their control, and one I would only use if left with no option. You see, in Elmore exists another dimension, a place where things that are deemed mistakes are sent. Now, while I don't see the boys being sent there on their own, I do know that there are weaknesses in the dimensional barrier between them. I have managed to find a few, and over time I learn of means to open them. Anything that is trapped in there will not only be trapped inside of an endless limbo, but anyone outside of the barrier will instantly forget of their existence. The level of erasure of this method is what has me only even entertain this option should there be absolutely no other choice. They are just kids, ones with long lives ahead of them. I wouldn't want to cut that short if it could be avoided. This world has actually evolved to become a final solution for the entire family. As of now, I am working on a method to open a hole into this dimension right around the Waterson home, successfully subduing them all at once, hopefully without much of a fight as well. It's pretty clear that a large portion of the city either wouldn't miss or celebrate their disappearance. But I'm not here to entertain the idea of getting rid of a family just because the rest of the town may find them annoying. It will be a hard choice to make, or rather, it would if I still had to make the choice myself. On June 24th, 2019, the Amazing World of Gumball TV show would air its final episode. During the end of it, a hole to this other dimension would begin to open, presumably pulling all of Elmore into it. As such, not just the Watersons, but the entire populace of Elmore can be considered subdued and captured. While a tragic end, it may have been for the best. There was no telling what could happen if they somehow reached the wider universe. As such, as long as this show remains canceled, I won't have to worry about facing the Watersons anytime soon, as it is unlikely we'll ever see its return. If you also have a character you wish for me to cover, or just want to support this channel, I'll have a link to my Ko-fi page. There will also be a Google Doc with the list of characters who have ever been done or already commissioned by others.